Hi everyone, so if you're new to PoE or maybe have played in the past and you're not really aware of all the new Atlas changes, I want to bring you this guide here to help you out to understand a bit of what to do after finishing a campaign. So when you have done the campaign, you killed Act 10 Kitava, you've done the epilogue, you'll be in your hideout and you will have access to the map device and you're going to have your first maps available. So when you press this Atlas button, default is G I believe, you see the Atlas here. Mine is almost filled out entirely, and there's a lot of stuff going on here that you will not have at the start. So what you will see is here an empty Atlas, and you will be starting in the middle in those 4 maps here. These are going to be the tier 1 maps: Jungle Valley, Yukos, Arcade, and Pen. This is what's currently in this league. It shuffles around every time. So if I remove those watchstones here, you'll see that the map changes and the layout changes. Essentially what these do is they upgrade all the maps in that region where you have socketed those watchstones, and you also get access to more maps. So right now this is the tier 1, this is what it looks like baseline, and we have, there's a promenade, there's the lair, etc. And then when you pop in these watchstones, you have tier 4 and then tier 5, and you also have like a few more maps that you can see now that weren't there before. So this is how that works. And basically you start out with those tier 1 maps and you try to complete maps that you haven't done yet, and you try to progress towards the corners of the Atlas. So you want to go here to the bottom right, to the top right, to the top left, and to the bottom left. And Zana will give you the mission to find the Conquerors. And the Conquerors is actually what you see here now with this so-called influence. So you see this like colored, and there's like these effects here in these different regions. And for me this means that I have Conqueror influence on these maps. And basically what you have to do is, once you have this influence, you'll find them first time in the corners. You have to unlock those citadels. You basically just run maps that are here, for example marshes, toxic sewers, lookout, primordial blocks, etc. And eventually you'll get access to the citadel that allows you to socket the watchstones here. Now at first you won't have any of those watchstones. You get them from the Conquerors, and the Conquerors are a selection of 4 different endgame bosses, and each time you kill one of them you'll get one of those watchstones here. You might find a lot of duplicate maps, so you might have multiple copies of the Pen map and then multiple copies of the Promenade map. You generally don't really want to run the same map again unless you have a Conqueror spawned in that region already. So you want to progress your way to the corner, so you go from this to this. Essentially every map can drop the connected maps. You see like these little paths that lead from one map to another. These drop more often when they are nearby, and this will also mean that you should try to run like an Arid Lake, for example, to get like your first map here in Lyra Athane region, and then you get like a lookout, and from there you get like a primordial blocks, or you get like an estuary, and so on. And eventually, as you keep running maps in this corner region here, you will find a Conqueror influence. So you get like a new quest update, and there's going to be like extra monsters, and these maps have a little bit more juice basically, and they can drop these influenced bases. But most importantly, you can get this interface here that you see on the left with those different Conqueror symbols and also these maps here. So in my case, for example, I have Lex Ajoris, I have the Crusader influence here, and this whole region is basically tagged, and I can run any of those maps to progress towards that Conqueror. So whenever you complete one of those maps, you get like another step in the completion here. Yellow means this is completed, and then blue means you still have to run more maps here, or this black. So basically it shows you how many maps you have to do until you can fight the Conqueror. And once you have filled out the entire bar, you get a new quest from Kyrak here, and you'll say something like travel to Drox's Citadel or something. And then Zana gives you the quest to open the map. And when you run the Conqueror map, essentially after defeating the normal boss on that map, it will open a portal to the Conqueror's domain, and you can finish him and you can get the watchstone, and then you can start socketing the first watchstones into your Atlas. You want to keep repeating that step and collect all the watchstones there are. In total it's 32, and every time you have one fully socketed citadel, you get 1 awaken level. So this shows here in the middle, and essentially this gives you a lot of extra bonuses, a lot of extra juice, while also making the maps a little bit harder to run. So over time you upgrade the tiers of all the maps, and you also get extra bonuses here from the awakening level. For the start, this is nothing to worry about too much. Essentially, you want to try to like spread it out evenly. So you want to have, you know, like one watchstone here, one watchstone there, one here, one there, and then, you know, slowly progress towards, you know, 2 everywhere, and then 3 everywhere, and then 4 everywhere. But later on, it is also helpful to just, you know, put more watchstones into the same region to try to like target farm that region a little bit more and boost your map pool in that region, because you need to kind of like stack up the higher tier maps. Because after you do the first round of Conquerors, for example, you get like 1 watchstone here and 1 watchstone there, and next time you will have to run higher tier maps to actually progress towards the next Conqueror. And it will also always tell you, here for example, I have 3 watchstones obtained, 1 is not obtained, and it tells you number of socketed watchstones is 4 to spawn a Conqueror. So you need to have all socketed, and this also means you need to run the same tiers that you can see after socketing those 4 watchstones here. In my case, I would have to run like a tier 15 Marshes, and a tier 14 Toxic Sewer, and a tier 15 Racecourse if I want to get progression towards the Conqueror spawn. If I run, you know, like a yellow map, like a tier 9 Marshes, I will not get progress. And the good thing is it also shows you a warning. Whenever you try to put a map into the device here, it will actually tell you, warning, this tier of the map is too low for any Conqueror to occupy the region. So it can be quite difficult at the start when you have basically no map pool to kind of progress to the higher tiers very quickly, but map sustain has really evolved a lot these days, and it's not really such a big deal. The good thing is you can also use Zana to help you out of that. So Zana sells maps to you. You can just purchase them, and here you can see it costs like a few orbs of chance. You don't really need them for much anyway, so just buy them, like basically buy all of them or most of them. You can hold down Alt to see which ones you have completed already. Good thing is you can reset this inventory, so this doesn't reset on its own, but whenever you do a Zana mission, you can actually get a new inventory to buy from. And this is really useful. So you could, for example, do a mission. You just click on this button here. You can also see how many you have. It shows here on the right. Zana is the one on the bottom right here. And you see the white 0. This means I have 0 missions for white maps, I have 4 for yellow maps, and 19 for red maps. So whenever you run a white map, you have a chance to get a white map mission. Whenever you run a yellow, you have a chance for a yellow mission, etc. And when you pop in the map here, it will give you the Zana mission, and when you start out one, it will reset your inventory, and you can buy more maps from her. This is a really good way to progress your map pool. In the end, you shouldn't worry too much about trying to complete every single map there is. Even now, you know, I've defeated Awakener level 8, and I still miss like 40 maps or so, and I still miss a lot of Awakening objectives. This is something that you can just grind out over time in the end game, but you know, don't worry too much about it. Just make sure you unlock all the citadels first. So you start with the corners, and then it's those middle regions here, and then you know, you start collecting those watchstones over and over. You have to be a little bit strategic about this, but nothing really crazy. Essentially, you always get a warning when there's something wrong with the map tier, or you don't have enough watchstones socketed or something. So always check before you start the map if there is any warning. But you can also, you know, try to circumvent those warnings by just putting the watchstones in the right spot and running the right map. One thing important about the Conquerors is you cannot have the same influence on multiple regions. So there's only 4 Conquerors, so only 4 regions can be occupied with a different one. So you can't have Crusader influence here and then somewhere else. You have to defeat him here first, and then you can, you know, try to target spawn him somewhere else. And with this, you go round and round until you have most of the watchstones. I think after 20 watchstones, you will fight Sirus for the first time. So this will be Awakening level 5, so this is quite far progressed already, and you'll be like way into red maps. And this is when you defeat Sirus, which is kind of like the leader of those Conquerors. And that's kind of like the end game boss here. Not counting the new Maven. And speaking of Maven, you'll also see those blue progression bars here on top of those citadels. So after you've unlocked those citadels, you will get the Maven progression here. And this is entirely separate from all the other Atlas progression and those watchstones and this kind of stuff. So what Maven gives you is those Atlas passive trees. So when you click in the middle of those citadels, each region has a separate Atlas passive tree that gives you some bonuses that are tied to certain league mechanics. For example, here in Liver Athane, we have some Blight modifiers, and here's some Einhar modifiers, and here's some Heist stuff, and there's some Breach stuff, and then you have the other region here, and there's, you know, some Metamorph stuff. So you can basically progress towards target farming certain league mechanics that you like, and you can just mostly leave out the rest. And this actually takes a lot of time as well. And the way you progress this is you have to kill map bosses in that region with the right map tier yet again. So it starts out with white maps, and then it also goes to yellow maps, and it goes to red maps eventually. And every time you fight one of those bosses, Maven will basically watch the fight and collect that boss after you've defeated it. And when you have filled out this progress bar, you will get a Maven's invitation. You go in there and you fight those bosses again all at once. Typically those fights are not really that crazy, so far I had no trouble whatsoever with those, because they're actually quite easy and they're not really coming all at the same time. So don't worry too much about it. You definitely want to do this, and this means you also want to run different maps every time. And you have this little icon here that shows you that the Maven has already gotten one of those copies. And every time you do one of those Maven's invitations, you get a reset, and you have to collect more bosses, and then you get 2 more of those Atlas progression points here, and you can have 10 per region. For now, it definitely seems like the Maven progression is much slower than the Atlas progression. So you see I'm basically fully done with the watchstones. I'm just missing like 3 or so, and that's about it. But Maven, yeah, takes a long time. Here's like my first region where I have to do 10 bosses. This is like the maximum. And it starts out like 3 or 4 bosses, and then goes to 5 and 6 and 8 and 10 or something. And apparently once you have unlocked all of those, you also can fight the Maven, but I haven't seen it myself. There are some things to note here for better Atlas progression, and that is that item quantity matters. So when you have a map, essentially the bonuses to item quantity help you to find more other maps. So you see, for example, when you make this blue, it has plus 10% item quantity, plus 4% pack size, and then you can craft more stuff on this, and it goes up even higher. And this item quantity and this pack size will help you to find more maps. Normal item quantity that you can find on certain items don't give you more map drops, but the maps themselves specifically do that. So this is really useful, and it can be worth, especially when you're just running, like your only tier 5 map or something. Maybe just throw an Orb of Alchemy on it. Don't be shy of that currency. It's not really worth much. So, just put one on, and you get like, 40% item quantity, 17 pack size. That alone gives you already like over 50% more drops in that map. And that can also help you out to progress and get more map drops to go to the other regions. Also later on, when you go to red maps, you want to chisel them. So for example, we can take this one here. I usually start this at like T11 maps, and you use on a white map especially those cartographers chisels. You should have some of them at some point. And when you do it on a white map, you get 5% per chisel, up to 20%. And this already gives you a 20% bonus here. And then you can just alch it, and then typically this is what you run, or maybe you also have to corrupt it. So you have to kind of check, some of those maps need to be run as a blue, some of them need to be run as a yellow, some need to be run as a corrupted version. Also, last thing, when you check the map tab, it is very useful, and if you reach the end game, this is the first tab to buy. So there's basically 2 tabs, currency and maps, that you need. Otherwise you can't really play the game, but map especially, you will have no chance without this map tab. So you have to get it. And also you have like a lot of these icons here, and it tells you which maps you have completed, which maps you have the Atlas bonus, the Awakening bonus, so those are those 2 bars here. And also it tells you here's an influence from Crusader, here's an influence from the Redeemer. So you see it has like this little outline around it, and here is witnessed by the Maven. So this is pretty neat and gives you a nice overview. And you can also filter, for any map here, for example a pen map or peninsula. Or you can also filter for the region, so you can type Lux Proxima, and everything will be highlighted here. And again, if you're trying to progress for your watchstones, you have to run the right tiers. So whenever you, for example, need to have 2 watchstones socketed to spawn the next Conqueror here, you see that this is tier 10 and this is a tier 10, and this is all of this is tier 10. There's 11. So you need to run those tiers of those maps. So we can go and type Lyra Athane, and we will have like a tier 4. This is not good enough. We can have a tier 7. This is also not good enough. But here is, like a tier 12. Here's a tier 11. So those are fine. Yeah, so that's it for the basics of the Atlas. There is a lot more stuff that I haven't even mentioned, but so far this should help you out to progress towards yellow maps, progress towards red maps if your build allows, and just keep progressing in general. So I hope you like this video, and I'll see you guys next time.